You can see The Wrong Man, A Cry for Help on YouTube. If you just look it up under Darlie Routier, you'll find it there. And even though these two detectives gave Darlie hell, at the end of it, they weren't sure. They weren't sure if Darlie committed the crime or not. They would have to investigate it more. But let me show you a way that supporters start rumors. And the way that people that support Darlie will just overlook some things. It's long been said that Detective Jimmy Patterson took the fifth on the stand in Darlie's case. Even Cooper said that he took the fifth on Darlie's case on the stand there. Right? This show is leaning towards more of Darlie's innocence. The supporters have led people to this show before. But let me show you how they do things. Listen here.
When the defense attorney was cross-examining the lead investigator, he got about halfway through, and the judge advised him to take the fifth.
Which investigator was that?
This was Jimmy Patterson, because Patterson had wiretap and the graveside, looking for a graveside confession.
The fact that a police officer took the Fifth Amendment, to me, as a jury, that would be the end of their credibility.
I have never, and I've testified, I can't tell you, hundreds of homicide trials. I have never took a Fifth Amendment. I said no on the witness.
It's against self-incrimination, exactly. And you're the officer, the lead officer in the case. I can't imagine the judge allowing a capital murder case to continue when you can't cross-examine the lead investigator because he took the Fifth Amendment.
That's incredible.
But I'm going to tell you, there's not one piece of direct evidence, not really one piece of credible evidence, why she should spend 10 years on death row or certainly be executed.
Now you see how this gentleman, they're going on talking about, oh yeah, he took the fifth and I've never done this and I've never took the fifth in this case. And oh my God, he took the fifth. Well, here's the truth for you. None of them people read the transcripts because Jimmy Patterson did not take the fifth, and he went on and testified about everything else in the case. He never took the fifth. Yes, he take the fifth. But this show that's slanted towards Darlie being innocent will let that roll. They'll let that roll. Well, let's just take a look at the transcripts and find out for ourselves, shall we? So you can see here where Doug Mulder has Jimmy Patterson on the stand, and they start to talk about the microphone by the graveside. You can see here, I'm going to go directly down through here, right? And just remember what that show just said, that the judge said this, and he took the fifth. When they start to talk about it, right away, he said he was halfway through it. They just started talking about it. Before this, they were talking about a little bit of something else, right? They just started to talk about that. Did you attend the funeral? Blah, blah, blah. There was a prayer service. All right. They just started to talk about it. I think I said, well, they were halfway through it. All right. Did you place a microphone? Right, blah, blah, blah. This is Mulder asking him that. I did not. Who did? Two other detectives. Why did they do that? In case someone went out there and made a confession about what happened. Did you realize that that was done with your knowledge? Yes, sir. Do you know that that's a violation of federal law? That is a federal felony. So here's a police officer, a detective, that was heading up a homicide division that's being accused of committing a crime in open court. But let's go on. This is when Davis objects to that right away. I'm going to object to that. That calls for some legal conclusion. The legal conclusion being that he's a criminal because he committed that crime. The judge sustained it. The judge said, yeah, you're right. You can't accuse people of, his Alzheimer's made him sustain that. But you can't accuse people of crimes in open court. Unless it's the crime you're talking about. So there's the tape. Exhibit 77. Now, this you didn't tell them, it was a violation of the law as well. Jimmy Patterson never took the fifth on that. He never said, I'm taking the fifth on it. See, and I didn't even realize this. So I got rigging back into this case. I just kind of just believed what everybody said, that he took the fifth. I saw this once before, but I never really dug into where he actually took the fifth. He did not take the Fifth Amendment. But Darlie did. Darlie took the Fifth Amendment in the bond hearing. She sure did. They go on and talk about everything else in the case. Everything else. He leaves him up there on the stand, and they talk about everything else in the case. Jimmy Patterson never took the Fifth Amendment. And any supporter that has said that, all right, here we go. So this is the second time he's been accused of a crime. If you're saying that I violated some state or federal law, I'm not going to answer it. Yeah, yeah. The court, Mr. Motor, I know the law, and here we go. Mr. Motor, please. Officer Patterson is a law enforcement officer and is presumed to know the law in Texas. Yes, sir. I have advised him of his rights in this regard, and you do have a right, under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, not to say anything that might tend to incriminate you in any way. And you certainly understand all of that, do you? Not? Yes, sir. So you are an experienced law enforcement officer. You have warned a lot of other people of their rights. You know what their Miranda warnings are, do you not? I do. Well, then, if you know what the Miranda warnings are, then I think that speaks for itself. You understand what you can do and what you can't do. Do you need any further counseling, do you think? Any explanation of what your rights are under the law? No, sir. Okay, fine. I think we have covered that. So ask your questions. If he wants to answer it, he will. If he does not, then he can invoke the Fifth. Yes, sir. Let me just ask you something. Do you understand any more about it now than you did before the judge talked to you about what the law is? No one has read me a statute that I violated the law. Okay, would you like to have time to read both the state laws and the federal laws regards to the superstitious collection of conversations such as you and those other officers told us that you about before lunch recorded? I would like to read it. Well, then, in that case, do you have another witness that you can put on the stand? See, she's saying that this judge has Alzheimer's, right? There's people saying that he's got Alzheimer's. He didn't know how to run that courtroom. But look how he's doing this right here. Perfectly. Would the court let me go on to some other matters and then let him read the court during the proceed? Let's just don't get into that area. Get into something else. They gave him the opportunity to study more about the law. In fairness to you, don't you think that it's appropriate that anything I asked you about that or any remarks make it recorded? Do I think it's fair? Well, I don't understand what you're saying. At this time, until I have legal counsel or until I've read that, if I violated something, then I'm not going to answer you. Well, I guess I'm missing the point. But in fairness to you, so that you're a jury, if it comes down to that down the line, we'll know exactly what you said and what admissions you made or didn't make. Don't you think, in fairness to the prospective defendant, that those conversations should be recorded so that there is no question about what you said? I don't understand what you're saying, and neither do I. Well, all right, let me put it another way, and maybe I can make this a little more artful. I guess the bottom line is, if I am going to question you about criminal conduct, don't you think, in fairness to the person questioned, and then I tell you that I'm going to use that, whatever you say, on down the line against you, or I could have, is that possibility, don't you think, in fairness, that the person questioned that your answers ought to be recorded so there is no question about what you said or didn't say? I don't understand what the hell he's talking about either. So, I thought we were done with this till we had a break. Jimmy Patterson never took the fifth. He never said, I take the fifth. He said, if you're going to accuse me of a crime, then I want to know more about it before I answer anything about that crime. But he never once said, I take the fifth in this case. And I'm going to the very end of his. Yeah, they're going back to the notes. But the fact of the matter is, Jimmy Patterson never once said, I'm taking the fifth on the stand here. The judge did suggest that he might want to get legal counsel, but he never said, I'm taking the fifth. The incompetent judge with Alzheimer's handled that quite well. But nowhere in the transcripts will you see Jimmy Patterson saying, I'm revoking that on the grounds of the Fifth Amendment. Never once.